Hello and welcome to Food Tank's webinar series. My name is Sarah Small and I'm Food Tank's Chief of Staff. I'm really excited about today's webinar with Amber Stott, who has one of the coolest job titles. She is the founder and chief food genius at the nonprofit Food Literacy Center based in Sacramento, California. And Amber has also been instrumental in helping Food Tank and the Farm to Fork program, which is part of the Sacramento Convention and Visitors Bureau, plan and execute the first annual Farm Tank event coming up in Sacramento this September 22nd and 23rd. And you can find more details on foodtank.com or foodtanksummit.com. So today, Amber's presentation will discuss the business of broccoli, how a Sacramento startup nonprofit is influencing the national movement to bring food literacy education to kids. This webinar will be recorded and posted on foodtank.com afterwards. You can also follow along and participate on Twitter using #FoodTank. Please also submit your questions using the chat box, or you can email them to me directly, Sarah, S-A-R-A-H, @foodtank.com. We will have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A session with Amber. So without further ado, it's truly an honor to have you here today, Amber, and I'm excited to hear your presentation and your enthusiasm. I will give you the floor now.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. So, welcome everybody, and today I'm going to be talking about the business of broccoli. And I want to begin by talking about food literati. These are the folks that work with Food Literacy Center and are so pivotal in helping our mission to thrive. And this is a growing movement around the world. And we hope that everybody by the end of this presentation will be interested in learning how they can participate. So, without further ado, I'm going to show you the definition of a food literati. And essentially, food literatis are not foodies who eat. Food literati are changing food and the food system for good. So these are the folks, again, that really drive the passion and the mission behind our work. I want to first begin by talking about the problem and why we need food literati like you out in the world. I want to talk about some of the trends, challenges, and opportunities that we see in the field of food literacy. This is really a new and burgeoning field. And then I'm going to talk about some of the innovations and what are some replicable examples that we're seeing here in Sacramento through Food Literacy Center that we hope the rest of the nation can look upon as this field is developing. And finally, I'm going to talk about how you can join the rhubarb revolution and become a food literati as well. The problem, it's a big one. In the Sacramento area alone, we have a 40% childhood obesity rate. 1 in 3 kids has type 2 diabetes. That's the preventable kind. Kids are also suffering from adult diseases like hypertension and stroke. All of these things are preventable if we eat our vegetables. But the problem is we have 2 generations of Americans that are not eating their vegetables. Only 4% of kids around the nation are actually getting the daily recommended amounts of vegetables in their diet. We also know that malnutrition is beginning to rise in America. And malnutrition is something that was traditionally tied to developing countries and starvation and kids who were not getting enough food. And now we're seeing malnutrition being tied to kids who are overweight and obese and who have excess calories. And the problem of malnutrition isn't, again, that here in America we don't have calories. The problem is that we have foods that are calorie dense, but not nutrition dense. So we're eating a lot of calories, but we're not getting enough nutrition for our bodies. And this is affecting the way our kids learn in school. This is affecting how our kids are able to focus in school or not focus. And it's causing a lot of further problems in society that aren't simply diet related in terms of their ability to perform and succeed and have a better chance at succeeding in life. So in 2011, I wanted to address this problem And I started a nonprofit called Food Literacy Center. And that's where I'm now the chief food genius. And our mission is simply to inspire kids to eat their vegetables. And we're teaching low-income kids in elementary schools, so Title I schools, and we're going into after-school programs, and we're talking about things like making an emulsion and STEM-based education, learning about measuring and recipes. We're talking to them about parts of a plant that you can eat. And we're really helping them explore and discover and learn about the deliciousness of fruits and vegetables as a means of helping them improve their health and improve their performance in schools. The rhubarb revolution is here. It's not just in Sacramento through Food Literacy Center. It's happening across the nation, and Food Literacy Center is just one piece of this burgeoning movement. So I'm going to talk about some of the trends that are happening in the field of food literacy. The first trend is actually very academic. When you think about the term food literacy, right now what's happening across the country is everyone's just trying to define food literacy. So you have the University of California system-wide has a global food initiative, and across departments and across, from Berkeley to LA to Davis, folks are coming together and actually trying to define what they think food literacy means. Canada, the whole nation of Canada, has a huge food literacy effort, and they're trying to define food literacy and what it means for their campaigns across the nation. And individual nonprofits like Food Literacy Center or Nourish are also tackling this question of what is food literacy? So as a field, we're really at the very beginnings of even trying to figure out who we are as food literati or the folks who are implementing food literacy. So it's very fascinating conversations that are taking place. And we at Food Literacy, our definition is very simple. We define it as understanding the impact of your food choices on health, environment, and economy. So aside from the academic trying to define things, really what's happening in the field of food literacy is people are rolling up their sleeves and they're getting into the dirt and they're getting into vegetables and they're just making change happen. So regardless of how you're defining it, people are defining it by action. And that's what's most important. So in the Sacramento area, as well as across the country. And what we're seeing is pretty phenomenal. We have 50 states that now have some type of farm to school program happening. And there's been a 430% increase just in the last decade. So the field of food literacy is beginning to boom. It's a really exciting time to be in this field. So at Food Literacy Center, we of course are one piece of this larger food movement and this food puzzle. Another trend that we're seeing is a legislative change. And this is another really exciting thing for us because we're beginning to see action in the legislature. And we have seen from 2014 data, just 1 year's little eye blink of legislation around farm to fork efforts. Some states like California have actually implemented a farm to fork office within the government. You see states that are passing bills and resolutions. They're creating the promotion of food hub facilities so that they can increase the amounts of local foods being served in school cafeterias. You're seeing funding for school garden programs. All of these things are critical to a growing movement. It's very exciting. And so Food Literacy Center decided to also get in on this. And when we began in 2012, we actually went to the California legislature and we passed Assembly Concurrent Resolution 161 to declare the month of September as Food Literacy Month throughout the state of California. And every year in California, we celebrate this resolution by hosting a Veggie of the Year contest. We go out to farmers markets and have kids crafts and activities and tastings. And throughout the city, we celebrate Food Literacy Month for a whole month, trying to raise awareness and increase education and get kids excited about cooking and eating their vegetables. And even this little movement of creating a statewide food literacy month has begun to expand. Last year, I was proud to work with the nonprofit Readers to Eaters in Seattle in the state of Washington. And last year during September, they also passed a food literacy month resolution in the state of Washington. So little by little, we're beginning to see the awareness and the receptivity of food literacy begin to improve and increase from legislature to schools to classrooms to parents and everyone. So it's a very exciting time to be in the field of food literacy and being allowed to help shape it and design it and form it. However, we are seeing one trend that is really interesting that I really want to touch upon, and that is this interesting trend right now where the majority of farm to school activities, and this is nationwide data that you're seeing on your screens right now, the majority of farm to school activities are still in gardening and education. And let me sort of break down. I think everybody's largely familiar what a school garden program looks like. So essentially building a garden on a school property where the kids can come either during their classroom time or after school and help grow plants, harvest fruits and vegetables. So these are some of the most popular programs and where a lot of the farm to school funding and activities are focused. And then the other portion is sort of generically education, and that's 85%. So what falls under education is largely the sort of, teacher standing in front of the classroom, adding nutrition information to her daily math class or her daily science class, and sort of weaving it into the lesson plan or during after school. But it's not necessarily hands-on. Sometimes there are activities tied to it, but it's largely education based. So it might be some kind of a coloring activity or something hands-on, but it's more about, it's not necessarily a hands-on experience with the food itself the way it would be in a gardening scenario, or for example, a cooking scenario. So if you see on this slide, cooking and tasting are only at 22% of the overall total farm to school activities that we are seeing. Local procurement at 63%, that's where the schools are buying and, for example, putting in their salad bars or somehow in their lunch program, these local fruits and vegetables. That's also on the rise. Cooking and tasting is still very, very low. And at Food Literacy Center, obviously, this is our passion. And this is the core of what we do. So this is something that I really want to highlight as a trend that we've yet to see really hit its peak, and an opportunity, because if the overall goal at the end of the day, if all of our problems are that 4% of kids are not eating vegetables, if 40% of kids have diet-related diseases that are preventable through eating healthy foods, then this cooking and tasting component and the consumption of vegetables is the utmost importance. And we're not yet seeing a true trend and a true overall blanketing of this type of programming. So Food Literacy Center, we are just beginning. The demand for our programs alone in the Sacramento area is gigantic. And I'm certain it's this way across the country, just from anecdotally what we hear, and obviously by seeing these numbers. So this is one place that we focus a lot of our attention, because ultimately we're trying to change kids' knowledge, attitude, and behavior toward fruits and vegetables, because ultimately we want them consuming those delicious vegetables. So I'm going to take a lot of time right now to talk about the cooking and the tasting and how important those types of programs are. And I'm going to start with something very radical, a peanut butter sandwich. So at Food Literacy Center, our signature lesson is a peanut butter sandwich lesson. Our curriculum is called Your Sandwich Can Save the World. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we take something like a peanut butter sandwich And this is the first lesson that we actually do hands-on with our kids. It's the first recipe that they make in class. And we do this for a couple of reasons. Number one, we come at food literacy from a place of positive reinforcement. So we want to start where kids are at with their diets. And we want to start with the foods that we know they're already eating and that are successful and wise choices. And we want to give them high fives for making those choices. And then we want to help to nudge them along to maybe make some small improvements that could make those good choices even better. So that's why we start with the peanut butter sandwich, because we know that many children already eat peanut butter sandwiches and love them. So we know that with this lesson, we're already starting from a place where we're going to win, and we're going to win their hearts and minds over. So we start with this peanut butter sandwich. We actually swap out the peanut butter for sun butter due to nut allergies, just for safety. And then we talk to the kids about what kinds of seeds or nuts might you make a butter out of. And it kind of gets their minds exploring and thinking outside of the box. And we swap out their white bread for whole grain bread. And we talk about why we would do that. And by this time, they've already learned a little bit about fiber and sugar in food literacy class. So they are beginning to understand that their bodies need these kinds of foods and why they're important for their health. Then we make the most radical request of them, and we ask them to swap out the jelly in their sandwich for fresh fruit slices. And we use whatever is in season. So sometimes it's apples, sometimes it's pears. We've even used pomegranate seeds and persimmons, whatever is local and in season, because those are the fruits that are going to be the cheapest at that time of year. And they're also going to taste the most delicious. And ultimately, if kids don't like the flavor of their food, we're not going to succeed. So we use what's local and in season. And we ask them, which of these jelly or fruit has more fiber, which has more sugar. And the kids begin to really open their minds to this idea. And by the time they're finished making their peanut butter and apple, or their sun butter and apple sandwich, they're wiggling in their chairs going, ooh, Miss Amber, can I taste it now? So it's a really fun and exciting thing to witness as these kids' minds begin to shift and think about ways that they can incorporate delicious fruits and vegetables into their everyday diets. So it's a radical innovation, but it's such a simple one. And I think that is what's paramount about food literacy, is that these solutions are very tangible. So now I'm going to give a couple of examples of other types of innovation that are going to be critical, where we're going to use this basic format. And I think the format of food literacy is critical to having that core curriculum underneath. And then we want to think larger and more strategically about the external factors to creating a successful food literacy environment. So one is partnership and collaboration. So what you're seeing here is the dream and the new future of Food Literacy Center. We are building a broccoli headquarters in Sacramento. And the exciting thing, we're not paying for it. This is happening through a collaboration between the city of Sacramento and the Parks Department, through a local real estate developer, and also through the school district. So essentially, a local real estate developer is building a new housing development near a low-income elementary school. And oftentimes when you build a new housing development, you also build a park. So there's a piece of 2.5-acre property that the school district owns next to the elementary school, next to this housing development. And the developer said to the school, what about using this 2.5-acre property to really show, instead of just a park, some innovations and the ways that we could use this beautiful green space. So between the city and the developer and the school district, and now Food Literacy Center, we're forming this amazing collaborative partnership with public and private partners, where we will develop a broccoli headquarters. So essentially, there will be a school garden. It's actually going to be a school urban farm. 2.5 acres is a very large plot. And we're going to also build ourselves a teaching kitchen facility. And every kid in the elementary school that's on this campus is going to go through an academic school day curriculum of both cooking and gardening, as well as nutrition. And we'll wrap it into their everyday curriculum. So we'll tie it to math lessons or science or history. And we're really excited about this because it really shows that food literacy is as critical to kids' education as reading and math. So that's one exciting change that's taking place. And another place where innovation is happening is right in the school cafeteria. And this year we were very lucky to be the recipients of our very first Farm to School grant. And this is another amazing collaborative partnership. This Farm to School grant is a collaborative between Food Literacy Center, another nonprofit called Soil-Born Farms, and they largely run a lot of the school gardens in our local elementary schools, and then the local school district, Sacramento City Unified School District. So the three of us provide something called a vegetable of the month. So every month we agree on one vegetable. The school district is sourcing this vegetable locally, and then they're putting it on the salad bars in every single school in the district, which is amazing. And then Food Literacy Center is doing tasting programs as well as teaching kids to cook during after school with that vegetable. And then Soil-Born Farms is using that vegetable in their garden. They're either planting it or harvesting it. So kids are really getting this full cycle picture of what a real robust food system looks like within their school environment. So it's a really exciting collaboration, and it helps get us inside of a system that is really open to change, but they need partners from outside the community who also are bringing dollars and resources together with the dollars that they have available as a school so that we can provide this robust package of programming. And Food Literacy Center, we provide all of our programs for free to the school district because we believe that this is the only way we can really ensure that the school districts can afford to have us there. And we rely on the donors from our community to support us in bringing those programs there. So this is a wonderful relationship. And obviously through the Farm to School grant, we do get some USDA dollars now as well to help us with this programming. So it's another critical partnership. And through this, as the Farm to School program has developed, we've begun to notice other changes that we would like to implement. For example, the vegetable of the month that was being put on the salad bar, we noticed kids were not always taking it on the first few days that we put it out because they didn't know what it was. And this is happening in schools across the country where these new food regulations in the school cafeteria are being implemented, but kids aren't familiar with the food. And it's not that they don't like the food, it's simply that they don't know what it is. So we've begun to implement tasting programs right on site in the school cafeteria during lunch service. And we've seen a huge spike in what the kids are able to or willing to taste and try. So it's very exciting to see this happening and the kinds of collaboration that are beginning with this expanded programming. Another place for innovation is in role modeling. And so Food Literacy Center has an amazing program that I developed in the second year of the nonprofit because I was realizing that I had so many volunteers coming to me and asking how they could help, but they didn't necessarily have the right kind of background to be prepared and ready to go into a classroom and encourage and inspire kids to eat their vegetables. So I developed something called the Food Literacy Academy. And it is a 28-hour intensive training program where community members are invited to apply and become accepted for this training. And at the end of it, they test in the classroom setting. And if they pass, they become certified food geniuses. This is why I'm the chief food genius. If you were wondering earlier about why that's my title. So these food geniuses end up going out into the community and delivering more food literacy programming. So this is how we scale our program locally, but they're also going into their own churches, their own families, other places throughout the community. Some of them even work on farms or in restaurants, and they bring this food literacy knowledge and this education with them, and they're inspiring deeper change throughout the community. So it's amazing to watch. And I'll tell you a quick story. The first Food Literacy Academy that I ran, at the time, it was just me. I wasn't even a paid employee. I was still a volunteer. And I was teaching in one school, and we were reaching 120 kids per week. Then I developed the Food Literacy Academy, and we had 20 students in that first cohort. And that summer, those 20 students deployed out into the world, and they reached 2,400 kids that summer. So this is a phenomenal program, and we're thrilled to be able to expand in this way. And our program really is working. I'm just going to give you a little bit of data to show what we're seeing as far as the results of our efforts. We know that 70% of our kids are going home and asking for the foods that they taste in food literacy class, and their parents tell us they love buying these foods. We actually are taking a lot of the burden off of the families, because in a low-income family, you're going to rely on the foods that you know your family eats when you have a very limited food budget. So by offering tasting programs in our after-school program and exposing kids to new and different types of fruits and vegetables, when they go home and ask their families to buy these, the families are more than excited to do so, because they know that those dollars are going to be spent on calories that their kid is going to consume. And that's the most important thing for any parent and any family. They want to give their kids fresh fruits and vegetables, but they want to know that when they buy them, they're going to be eaten. So this is an exciting piece of our program. And we also know that we are changing kids' attitudes toward healthy food. 92% of our kids tell us that healthy food tastes good. And 88% of our kids know how to read a nutrition label. It's real exciting stuff. I want to just tell one quick story as we wind up. And this is about Gage. So Gage is an amazing kid, and you're watching this picture of him. He is at this point in his second year of food literacy class, and it is day 2. And sitting next to or across the table from him is a little girl who is in year 1 of food literacy class. So she's on day 2 of her very first ever food literacy class. And we are making a salad. And the little girl is very trepidatious, and she keeps saying, "I don't like vegetables. I don't like that. Gross." And I said to her, "Gosh, that's too bad, because Gage loves his vegetables." And as if on cue, Gage reaches across the table and into the bowl of baby kale that we had sitting there. And as you can see in the picture, he begins to stuff it all into his mouth. And he ate that whole handful of kale right on the spot, as if to prove to this little girl how much he loves his vegetables. And what happened, we see a lot of peer pressure in food literacy class that is to the positive. And so the little girl who had told me she hates her vegetables picked up a piece of kale after she saw Gage eat it, put it in her mouth, picked up another piece of kale, and little by little, over the course of that day, she had actually finished her entire salad. So this is the success that we see within food literacy class, and it's amazing to witness every day. So with that, I just want to encourage everyone here to become a food literati. It's not hard. Hopefully I've shared with you some very tangible examples of ways that you can get involved, and really just roll up your sleeves, grab your rolling pin, and go out into your community. If you're just at home with your own family, that's a great place to start as well. Go bring your kids to the market with you, and every single week, pick out one new fruit or vegetable and have your kids select it. Go home and make an adventure of learning what to do with that fruit or vegetable. Maybe taste it raw, or maybe roast it, but make that your goal for the week, to learn what to do with that one new fruit or vegetable. And little by little, you're going to begin to notice that you too have amazing variety of favorite fruits and vegetables. So please join this revolution. It is really happening. It's growing across the country, and I hope that all of you will become part of it. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. Here's my contact information as well if you need it later.
Thank you, Amber. That was a wonderful presentation, and I love both your story of Gage and also your tip to try that in one new fruit or vegetable each week. I think that's something really simple that our listeners can start right away. So we do have a lot of questions. I'm going to try to get through as many as possible. And so I'd like to start by asking you this first question. And the listener writes, do you anticipate the definition of food literacy, once defined, to change the work you do at all? And if so, how?
No, I don't think the definition is going to alter the way we approach our work. I think it's a very broad and complicated subject, and that's why people are struggling with how to define it. And it's really funny. Some of the definitions that I've seen are paragraphs long, and obviously that's not the definition that's going to stand at the end of the day. So I think it's just, it's somewhat simple work, but it's also very complicated because it does wrap around all of these issues of economy, health, environment, and even under environment, we're talking about the environmental factors that kids within even their school, what are the environmental factors that influence the behavior and influence the choices that they're able to make within their diet. So even if I teach them to eat their vegetables, if at their school, they don't have a beautiful salad bar, or the school rewards everyone with incentives that are, chocolate and candy, how are we really changing the environment to support the healthy choices that we're teaching these kids if they don't have access then to those healthy fruits and vegetables? So there's so much wrapped up in this, small definition. And I think that's where it's getting complicated, but it will not, I don't think it will greatly alter. I do think there are some programs out there that are in development stages that maybe aren't as, to say that we're old at, we're only 4 years old, but it feels like we have a very solid curriculum and a very, we have some longevity under us and some core framework under us. And I think some of the newer programs could benefit from a definition to help them set up their framework potentially. But again, I think the definition is going to more follow what is happening on the ground, if that helps.
Thanks, Amber. And I can totally remember learning math problems with M&Ms when I was in school. And this next question, I think, ties into that really well. So this listener asks, how can, as an adult, we improve our food literacy as well? I feel like we totally missed out on programs like yours in school. The idea of trying to cook something new can be overwhelming.
Absolutely. Start small. Start with that peanut butter sandwich. I would say try to eat a fruit or vegetable with everything you're eating. So every meal, try to add a fruit or a vegetable. That's a really quick and simple way. So for example, if you have eggs for breakfast, chop up some green onion or some bell pepper and throw those on there. Or right now, cherry tomatoes are starting to come up. Chop up some cherry tomatoes and throw them on your eggs for breakfast. Or if you eat cereal, granola or oatmeal, add some fresh berries. Those are in season right now. And so if you eat a turkey sandwich for lunch every day, can you put some avocado on it and some lettuce? So think about little tiny ways that you can add a vegetable or a fruit to every single thing that you're eating. And as you begin to discover the favorite fruits and vegetables that you have, you're going to begin to learn to cook and develop those skills a little bit better, because you'll say, oh, I love avocado. What else now can I do with avocado? Oh, maybe today I'm going to make guacamole because I've been having it on my sandwich. Now I have all these beautiful avocado in my fridge. Let me make guacamole too. So I think little by little, as you add these things into your life, just take baby steps. I think that's the most important thing. Don't focus on eating a brown rice and kale salad tomorrow. Focus on what you're eating now and how you can make those subtle shifts, because a month from now, you likely will be eating that brown rice and kale salad.
I love that. And I love just your overall enthusiasm around fruits and vegetables. I think that's awesome. And then our next question comes from Claudia Carmen. She says, hi there, this is Claudia Carmen from Peru. I'm planning a school garden program here in my home country, and I'm really excited, but every time we find more challenges because we still don't know how to, quote, sell the idea to the school we want to apply to. How do you manage it?
Yeah, that's the tricky piece. I think, and again, the receptivity around a lot of food literacy and farm to school activities is definitely on the rise, but you still don't see it everywhere. And if you don't have that, if that particular school is not open, we've chosen not to go to schools where we don't have administrative support. So that's critical. If you don't want to be in a school where you're just beating your head against the wall, go to a school. There are plenty of schools that would love to have that program. So if they're not receptive, go to a different school, because they're going to welcome you with open arms. So I think really just, and then simultaneously, once you are in one school, the one that's receptive and excited, make sure you're sharing those success stories everywhere, on social media. And if you can get the press to come out, because the more the community begins to see the success around this program, they're going to want it in their school as well. And that's how the excitement grows. I hope that's helpful.
Thanks again, Amber. Okay, and our next question reads, how do you decide which schools to intervene with first? It seems like all the school lunches in districts in my area are highly processed and full of sugar, and I'm just not sure where to start. As a low-income single mother, I want to give my kids the best, but I don't have time to prepare their meals every day.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And again, like I said previously, I started in one school where I knew they would be receptive. And then as people began to want to participate in the program, so as I got more volunteers and more parents that became involved, the parents would say, oh, what about my school? I'm going to go talk to my principal. And so really I used my group of food geniuses and my community supporters to go out into the community and start planting those seeds. Oh, this program exists. Maybe we could have it here, because they're going to be your best champions, because they've seen it in action and they've seen the success of it. And so if your one particular school, you're not thrilled with their food, likely it's, the school district as a whole, and that's a giant beast to tackle. So for Food Literacy Center, I mean, the fact that we are working directly inside the school district and with our nutrition services department, that's somewhere I never dreamed that I would be in 4 short years with my nonprofit. So, really it's all about doing the best you can do with your one school and your one local program. And again, getting those cheerleaders and those champions, because as people hear about you, it's going to begin to open these doors. So if you've got your framework down and you're really doing the best programming you can do, that will resonate and you'll be able to succeed more and more. And so, on a specific family level, I would say, if you can rally other parents to, the PTA, to encourage the school to think about their school wellness policy. Those are other places that parents can have influence. At least in the state of California, schools are required to have a school wellness policy. And so you can, for example, right now we're working on the school wellness policy in our district, and we're trying to address some of those things like not having sugary incentives in classrooms and those kinds of things. So, it's a big beast to tackle, the school lunch issue, but little by little we can make that change.
Great. Thank you again. And this next question has a couple parts to it. And so it reads, the collaboration you mentioned with both private and public partners sounds amazing. How can we expand on school garden programs? And are there other innovative solutions to expanding children's food literacy? How does the work you do in Sacramento expand to other regions? And what can we do as activists in our community?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see this Broccoli Headquarters project really is as a pilot project. And you're actually beginning to see this kind of thing crop up a little bit here and there. Obviously Alice Waters trailblazed this 20 years ago in Berkeley. She's the godmother of this movement, and her particular project is at one school, and essentially ours is going to be at one school. But for example, we really leaned heavily on Alice Waters' program, the Edible Schoolyard Project. They wrote a letter of recommendation when we were applying to get this Broccoli Headquarters project. So, showing them, and they were very gracious, and they took our school board members and some of the staff through on tours of the edible schoolyard in Berkeley so that they could see and begin to visualize, here's an example of what's possible. So I very much see us doing the same kind of passing it forward of, being able to bring people through and show them this is an example of what's possible. And for us, we have an even different level of partnership than what the Edible Schoolyard Project has, because we have many more partners that are going to be involved in this. And so once we have our MOU written, we'll have these sort of legal documents that we can share and show other schools and other cities, like, this is what's possible, thinking outside of the box. Like, once somebody breaks the ground and shows the rest of the world what's possible, then others can replicate that much more easily because they begin to see the possibility. I think a lot of times for our legislators and our city leaders, they're innovative in their own ways, but sometimes they just need to see these examples to truly understand. Absolutely do that in my city. So that's what we're hoping, is that we can be a pilot and that we can share our resources and the way we've developed, and hopefully inspire some others to do the same.
Awesome. And we have time for just one more question. And so the question reads, I'm curious about any challenges in developing or changing kids' palates. I love the concept of food geniuses, but it seems like kids who have never seen a squash would still be hesitant. Can you give an example of how a food genius would approach this? And Amber, I think you kind of answered this a little bit with your story of Gage, but can you maybe provide another example or story, and then also let our audience know where they can find other we like to call them bright spots at Food Tank, but other stories of hope and success, maybe from Food Literacy Center?
Absolutely. And the thing is, it is not hard to get kids to eat their vegetables. It's not. It's like the easiest job I've ever had. And the challenge is actually with adults and getting them to shift their mindset. And because a lot of times what we'll do with kids, our automatic response to a kid when they see something new is, oh, are you going to like that? Or I don't know if you're going to like that. And we're sending a signal to kids when we say that. But if the signal that we send to them is, oh my gosh, you've never seen a squash before? How lucky. Today we're going to taste it. It's one of my absolute favorite vegetables. And when you're cheerleading and you're getting excited, it resonates, and little kids just want to please you. So if you're telling them it's one of your favorite things, they're gonna want to try it. So it's all about how we present it to them, and also giving them the opportunity to be involved in that choice. If they say no, thank you, they are not ready to try it, because that's a brave thing to have to do for a kindergartner. Just let them say no, thank you, and that's totally fine. Kids are less likely to eat a fruit or vegetable that they've been forced to eat. So we are all about the no thank you. But we do have a rule at Food Literacy: don't yuck my yum. So kids' immediate reaction when they see a new fruit or vegetable is to say, ew, and gross. And at Food Literacy, we have a rule that you might think is gross might actually be the kid sitting next to you very favorite thing in the world. So don't yuck my yum. Give everybody the respect and the chance to be excited about the fruit or vegetable that they love. And if you're brave enough to try it, that's cool too, because maybe next week it'll be your favorite too. So hope that's helpful.
Yes, that's awesome, Amber. And I love that you're really empowering kids to make those choices. And so we have to wrap up, but I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to all of our listeners for sending in their questions. It truly was a pleasure. And I just have a couple announcements. Our next webinar will be this coming Tuesday, June 21st at 12 Eastern, as always. And our presenter will be Neil Bloomquist. He's presenting on Palm Done Right, Can It Be Done? And then our Sacramento Farm Tank Summit will also be coming up September 22nd and 23rd in Sacramento. I'm sure you'll all see Amber there. She's on part of our planning committee, and we're thrilled to be bringing the Food Tank Summit structure to the West Coast. So thank you again, Amber. And as you all saw, her contact information was up there if you have any additional questions for her moving forward. Thank you all so much this Wednesday afternoon, and we'll see you again on our next webinar.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.